Welcome to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Scott Wurzbacher, and today we're exploring what someone can learn about the world by literally running around it. My guest is Marie Leautey, also known as Lootie, who spent 2.5 years running around the globe, solo, self-supported, and yes, through a global pandemic. As she writes in her newly released book, Lootie's World Run, imagine running a marathon every day for 2.5 years. And that's exactly what she did. Lootie is a former international CFO turned record-breaking endurance runner, now based in Greece. Her journey is about far more than physical adventure. It's a profound exploration of self, resilience, and the human spirit. With time to reflect on the experience, the lessons she's uncovered have only deepened her understanding of the world and our shared humanity. And I can't wait to hear her story with you all today. Lootie, welcome to the campfire.
Thank you for having me, Scott. Pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited. All right, so we're just going to start with the correct pronunciation of your name because I think I probably didn't do it justice. And then you can tell us why you developed your nickname.
No, you did pretty well. It's actually Leautey in French. And because I was living abroad since the age of 20, I left France when I was 20 and went to study in Scotland. And nobody could ever pronounce my name correctly. I think they just couldn't be bothered. So it turned out like Leautey became Lootie. And from there on, I've always been called Lootie. So it became my nickname and it stuck since all my adult life. So I kept it.
I love it so much. So you and I became acquainted, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago, maybe a little bit longer, but I got the chance to read your brand new book, Lootie's World Run. So the name sticks. We love it. And I devoured it. It was so much fun. I mean, incredibly inspiring just to kind of go through the chronicle of your journey and all the lessons that you learned, but it's just really fun and well written as well. So it was super easy to read and I kind of blasted through it and just really excited to talk to you about it. So people listening, like next step is to get the book and to read it for sure. But I wonder for those that aren't familiar, that haven't yet read the book, tell us about this crazy world run that you decided to do.
Yeah, I was in my early 40s and I was literally working, like you said, as an international CFO in Singapore at that time. And while I was living a very comfortable life, I had always thought to live a very nomadic existence to quench my curiosity for the world, really. That's what I've been doing for more than 20 years. And that in an instant of serendipity at work, I sort of drew a little doodle in my notebook. Absent-mindedly, and it was just when I looked at it afterward, it just represented a globe, like the world, with a little woman running around it. You know, I had made her run around the thing, and when I looked at it, I thought, what a brilliant idea that is. And of course, plenty of questions: has it ever been done? Does it exist? Is the human body capable of doing such a thing? And I did my research, and so that's how the idea came to me, and it fitted perfectly in my life. It was a part of my nomadic existence and my love for the outdoors, the adventure, and running. I was doing a lot of triathlon, which of course included running at that time. So it seemed to just pick up all the elements of enjoyment in life and curiosity for the world that I had. So that's how the idea came.
I love it so much. The book, you kind of get into some of the evolution of it. I mean, you weren't always a runner and certainly not a marathoner. And, you know, the story of how you even just started running is so unique. And I wonder, could you share a little bit of that?
Yeah, I mean, I was 26 years old. So I was already by that time 6 years into my nomadic life. I just happened to be posted in Greece, actually, between Athens and the little town of Marathon for work. And I was at that time smoking about a packet of cigarettes a day. So that's 20 cigarettes a day. I mean, I love partying. Part of the life as a nomad is to find ways to connect locally and to join the local scene. So you're looking after parties and, world of entertainment really rather than outdoors. And one day I had a group of friends. They were always finishing the day at the beach with a little 5K loop in the pine tree forest by the beach. They asked me to join in, and I thought, I'm 26. They're all in their 50s. It's going to be a piece of cake for me. I hadn't realized just how this lifestyle had impacted me. Yeah. And I got a massive slap in the face that day, like a reality check, because after literally 500 meters, I had to stop.
Yeah.
No further. And I did the walk of shame, back to my car, head down. And I was so really angry at myself, a sense of humiliation. And, how did I become, how come I'm in this state? I'm 26, I'm in good health. I had a very outdoorsy childhood. And what happened? And that was on this day where I decided to change things around. And from that day on, I have never smoked a cigarette again. And I just went back home, decided to prove as soon as possible to these friends of mine that I was actually able to run this 5K. So it started with this, where every day I would be running around the neighborhoods and trying to build up my distance. And actually 9 months later, I ran on my first marathon.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think what's so cool too is that you were in the place where essentially the marathon is invented, right? The distance between, help me out here. It's between Athens and Marathon. Is that the distance?
The other way around. It's between Marathon and Athens, and it's after the ancient soldier Philippides who ran to announce the victory in Athens of the Battle of Marathon, and he ran all the way from Marathon to Athens and announced the victory and collapsed dead. So that's a bit of a legend there, but it's a very famous marathon. It's very much an uphill marathon, so it's not an easy one. But yeah, it turned out to be my first marathon as well.
So the fact that you were there and this so-called legend, this is part of your story and part of the inspiration for you, yeah?
Yeah, and how crazy is it that I discover running in the world of marathoning by being posting next to this city of Marathon, and that maybe 14 years after, I decide to go around the world running a marathon every day.
Yeah.
And I'm back here after this world run, living in Greece now, and not so far away from marathon either. It's strange how sometimes you think you don't know if it's a coincidence or not. But there are things in this world that sort of shape your life in a way.
I love this conversation so much, and we're gonna get into some of the details. Like, I think we'll talk about the countries and the continents and the logistics. I think people can also get some of that from the book. I just selfishly, there's so many things I want to dive into, and knowing we don't have a ton of time, I'm gonna jump right in, because one thing about you, first of all, I need to make sure that didn't get lost. 26 years old, smoking a pack a day, big time partier, thinking I'm in good health and I can do this, but then having this realization, oh, wait a minute, this is actually taking a toll on my body. But I'm hearing two things. Number one is that self-awareness discovery, but also number two, for those listening, if you're the pack a day smoker that's out there partying, thinking I could never do something, I could never run around the world. Well, here you are, right? And you're showing the world that it is possible to change and to do something big. And I just want to make sure that doesn't get lost, because I think that's amazing. Part of your story includes this real connection with your body. And I think a lot of people listening, would probably say I do too, right? This person literally ran a marathon a day for 2.5 years. That's impossible. I would get broken. I would get hurt. Talk me through how you did that and never got hurt.
Yeah, that's actually the number of the world run that I'm most proud about. I could say I'm proud I've got a world record or so many kilometers or such pace or whatever. The one number I'm particularly proud about is 0, and it's 0 injuries. And that was actually my focus when I went into this journey. I was very well aware that only 6 people before me had been able to do it. And being able to do it means also being able to do it without being injured. Otherwise, you never go near the finish line. And I thought, well, the key point in this journey is going to be, how do I stay healthy? How do I not break down? Because injury means end of the journey. It was as simple as that. And I also knew that, and that's the statistic, for people who prepare to run one marathon in their season, let's say, 50 to 70% of them get injured just by running one marathon in their season, either during their preparation, during the run itself, or in the aftermath. So I thought, if that's a figure, and I'm doing everything as everybody else, that I'm heading for injury pretty soon. I mean, 700 marathon to run. Can you imagine? There is no way I can make it in one piece. So I started to really consider my body. My body is my team. My body is my locomotion, mean of locomotion. And I'm going to have to be my own mechanic. And I'm going to have to pay attention to everything, every signal it sends me. So part of the preparation was really learning about the human body. So it meant learning the anatomy. I discovered there are 26 bones in the foot, hundreds in muscles and ligaments. And, it's understanding how the machine works, just as you would with a car or a motorbike. If you were traveling with a car or a motorbike unassisted, you would know how everything works. You would want to be able to fix it. So part of it was learning how everything works. And another part was learning how to listen to every signal my machine sends me. Because in the world of running, most of the time you hear things that, oh, no pain, no gain. You've got to suffer in order to get better. You've got to. And I thought, well, if I let my body go in the pain zone and I consider it normal, then, the next thing after pain is the injury. Or actually, pain is maybe a signal of an already existing injury. Yeah. And that's the end of me. So it was really a lot of work to learn how to catch all the signals. So I developed some things that I call my body scan, whereby as I'm starting my run, generally, I could do it several times during my run, but I literally mentally scan my body. And I go from the tip of my toes to the base of my neck. And I spend as much time as necessary to understand, how are the toes? Okay, how is the base of the foot? How is this, that, and the other? You catch minor things. Like, I would also like to say I didn't even get one blister, because you catch all the minor things like, oh, hold on, my socks is not right. There's something, there is shattering happening or whatever. And then, well, you take you undo your laces, you take your sock out, maybe you put a bit of Vaseline or something, and then you get on and you don't have that blister. And you pay attention to everything. And there are so many, we can discuss about it, but there are so many ways to address a problem. It can be to change your route. It can be to change your gait. It can be to run on different terrain. There are so many ways to address issues when it's about your body that I never felt I ran short of solutions. But it's a massive job to do because, understanding the body, I'm not at all a medicine person. I had never opened a medicine book before. And here I was studying how everything is connected and works together.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the things that you talked about in the book too is not that you disregarded advice from other people, but you're very intentional about kind of trusting yourself over having coaches and people that tell you what to do just because you're the only person that really knows. And I just wonder if you could talk about that.
Well, it's connected to the fact that 50 to 70% of runners get injured. So I was very aware from the get-go that I had to do things differently to get the different result I was looking for, which is being able to run 700 marathons in a row uninjured. So it seemed to me that I had to get away from the science, if we can call it a science of running. Everything I read in the running magazine, what I need, what I don't need, how to prepare for speed, I had to get away from that because this is the mainstream knowledge. And this is what I was assuming was leading everybody to get to this very high rate of injuries. If you have a runner friend, ask. I'm sure he had problems with his knee, with his hip, with his ligament, tendons, whatnot. Everybody gets injured. So it was very important for me to form my own knowledge. And for the very reason that only 6 people before me had managed to do that. And it's not well documented, So I was lucky enough that most of the 6 people before me had written a book. So I was able to also get some tips from them. And I understood that each of them went with their own methodology somehow. And they all developed their own techniques. So I thought, well, there is no shortcuts there. I'm going to have to find it out for myself, what works for me. because there is no universal solution, I guess.
Yeah. And not to kind of belabor a point, but I think you kind of already said this, but one of the things that I found really interesting was, the concept of the pace that you kept in this whole thing. For many marathoners, like you said, if you're setting out to do one, it's like, I want to run as fast as I can and have my PR. But like for you, this is not about a time. This is about doing this consecutively every day for 2.5 years. And so, for you, it was more about that comfortable pace. And it was like this rhythm that was just like, just completely in sync. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. It's a concept that I like talking about, and this is a very not very explored one. It's called accidental performance. So by setting the ground for everything to work properly, for my body to be able to perform without getting injured, by finding the pace that is comfortable for me and that allows me to repeat day after day that daily marathon, by setting everything right and not at any point focusing on the performance, which is by many runners' account, performance is measured in pace. I never focused on it. And yet I achieved in this world run some of the highest pace in the history of world running. To give you an overview, each of my marathon was run on average in 4 hours and a half. So it felt like I was not running. I was genuinely running. It's around 9.2 kilometers an hour.
Right.
But it happened by not focusing ever on it. If I had focused on pace, if on the start line of my world run, you would have said to me, Lootie, right, what's on the program is easy. You're going to run around the world across 4 continents, across mountain ranges, deserts, and whatnot. And you're going to have a steady pace throughout of about 4 hours 30 per marathon. This is not going to change whatever continent you're on, etc., etc. I would have said to you, I'm not going. This is not I can't do it. I can't do it. Because most of the time, what you have to realize as well is when you set yourself an objective, you set yourself a limit. If I said I want to be able to run this in like average 5 hours per marathon, this will be your limit. And, a limit is something you struggle to get to. You pat in the back when you reach it. If you don't set a limit and you say with just feeling good, that's when everything is possible because there is no limit. So that's how I handled pace. And I was very positively surprised when I, at the end of the world run, when I found out, I calculated all continents together, what the pace was, and it turned out that was that. But very happy, but maybe not surprised about knowing how everything was set for this to happen somehow.
It's amazing. So I guess, what I'm kind of experiencing in my own mind is this idea of like, just this comfortable consistency, not worrying about performance, just doing what works for you and constantly checking in with your body. And I'm like thinking like, how does this apply to other things in life? It's a really cool thing. But then the next question is, this idea of like running at a quote comfortable pace for 2.5 years. Surely there were times when you were uncomfortable.
Yes. Definitely. When you cross the Andes or any mountain range, or if you run in extreme cold, in a snowstorm, or if you run through heat waves, or like it happened in North America at the beginning of my crossing through the state of Washington, there was a lot of wildfires. So you're running through smoky environment. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Of course it is. And your pace suffers. Obviously, I don't run at the same pace when I'm crossing the Andes through the wildfires or whatever as when I'm running on the flat plains of Italy, which are completely flat, or through Minnesota, I remember, and Wisconsin was particularly flat as well. So yes, things vary, but the thing is about, from the moment I decided to go on this world run, a number of things had to be acknowledged and accepted, never to be discussed again. I'm doing this world run because I want to see the world and because I love being outdoors and sensing the world. So yes, there is wind, and sometimes it will be in my space. There will be snow, there will be heat, there will be mountains, all that is accepted because that's part of the experience I'm looking for. So you will not hear me complain about this. I might be running in the wind and say, oh, damn, it's hard today. But Am I going to get mad at the wind? No. Or mad at the mountains? No. You choose. This was part of the experience. So it's not taking me out of my comfort zone. This is part of the comfortable adventure of experiencing the world on my feet. So put in this perspective, it's just fine.
I love your perspective on it. So listen, to bring the listeners into this experience and kind of capture like the magnitude of what you did, could you just kind of walk us through the journey, the continents, countries, and maybe a highlight or a low light from each continent?
Yeah, so the plan of the journey was, made following the rules of the World Runners Association, which is the international body that actually ratifies world runs. So they have about dozens of rules, I think 10 rules. And some of them talk about the minimum distance to cover, how many continents you have to cross at a minima, and in which order. So you have to go in a continuous direction. So I planned it with this structure in mind that I had to follow to abide by the rules. And that made it easier in a way, because if there was no rules, I don't know even how I would have mapped this thing. So my plan was to follow the south coast of Europe, because you got to cross each continent from one ocean to another, except between Europe and Asia, the border is in Istanbul in Turkey, or by the mountains, whichever border you choose. And then so they were to cross Europe entirely, then to cross a bit of Asia, then to cross Australia, then North America and South America. So that was the plan. If you look at my start date, I started in December 2019, which, unbeknownst to me, was just 3 months before the pandemic broke. Yeah. And I was crossing Europe. And so, of course, I was stranded for 3 months during the first lockdown that we experienced. And after this 3 months of lockdown, when I was finally able to resume my run, Europe was like a maze. Some countries were open, some countries closed. You could go there, but not there. You could go through a country, but you were not allowed to stay either in a hotel or wherever, or to come free. So, it was terribly difficult to just cross Europe. So my running across Europe, instead of lasting 7,000 kilometers, remember this number, 7,000 kilometers, about 6-7 months, lasted 15,500 kilometers in 1 year and a half. So this is, and it is something, because for a year and a half, in my head, I'm running around the world, but I'm just stuck on the very first continent. Like, I'm not making progress. Of course I'm making progress. But mentally, this was, how do I accept that as part of that's just one of the circumstances of the world that I'm adjusting to. And then, so finally, after a year and a half, when I'm allowed to graduate to my second continent, it felt awesome. And then I went to North America, which was, to me, this continent crossing was a bliss. Was it because Europe had been so convoluted? It was a bliss. Also, like I said earlier, I had to deal with the heat dome, with the wildfires, with crossing the Rockies, with crossing the Appalachians, with crossing massive places, between Seattle and Minneapolis. That's 3,500 kilometers of running, literally. So the state of Montana and North Dakota was not much along the way. So, with all these challenges, but it felt like a bliss because, COVID was sort of behind me and I was allowed to run free. Then, of course, South America has the number one challenge is if you want to run South America from one coast to another, you have to cross the mighty Andes mountain. No way around. So, and my crossing happened between Chile and Argentina. The most beautiful, probably the hardest part in terms of physical efforts. So, of course, crossing the Andes in terms of physical requirement was probably one of the most difficult things out there, because in the span of 5 days, you go from sea level in Valparaiso to 4,000 meters of altitude. Can you imagine that?
That's a lot.
In the span of like 5 marathons. There is no gradual adaptation. There is no all these things that we do when we are going mountaineering of, going up and down. No, it's just in a straight line. But standing there at almost 4,000 meters of altitude, at the border between Chile and Argentina, in the middle of nowhere, it's just an incredible, pang in the heart. It's such a unique moment. In this instance, it's not like you forget the physical price you paid for it, the incredible effort you put in, but you feel that the reward is so beautiful that you put it at the back of your mind very quickly. So, and then having crossed South America, then I went to cross Australia, which was close to me for 2 years and a half because of COVID. So I had to wait that long. And of course, it came with its own challenges and beauty again. In Australia, when you cross from coast to coast, from Perth to Sydney, you have 1,200 kilometers of desert. It's a desert where no one lives. And all there is every 200, 250 kilometers, you have a petrol station. So everything came with its own challenges and highlights. But there is nothing I would trade for something else. The way it was just perfect. To me, it was a perfect journey. Every day was an adventure in the adventure.
Oh my gosh. So 2.5 years. So Europe, then US, then South America, then Australia, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to mention that in the rules, you have to run in a continuous direction. And I've been granted a special exemption by the World Runner Association to bypass Australia because it was closed for so long. And they said to me, look, you've been stuck in Europe for 1.5 years. Just continue with the other continents. And whenever Australia opens, then, you do it whenever it's feasible.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I'm thinking about the European part. You were planning to do 7,000 kilometers, ended up doing 15,000. In this pandemic, did you ever think I just need to stop and start over at some point in the future?
It didn't even cross my mind.
I love it.
It's simply because, it's not that different of anyone. Most people who were working. Do you close your company because there is a pandemic?
Right.
Some have to close, some restaurants or whatever. Some adjust. They start doing takeaways. They start doing deliveries. There is a way to continue your business, if you see it this way, or the thing that you're living for. There is a way to continue it. And that it's not going to last forever. Sooner or later, we will go back to a world where we are free. And even with our adjusted solution, we're able to continue what we do. And this was exactly my mind frame. I'm also an entrepreneur and a finance person. Yeah. So you spend your life being thrown obstacles and learning how to on the go react and find the solution to either go around or above. So for me, it was no different from that. And it was no different from all of you, because I was a bit outside of your world. I was not in business anymore. It was just like anybody else. How do I adjust and make it sustainable despite the pandemic?
It makes a lot of sense. In my world, my day job, I'm in the real estate business, and we had to get creative, and there were things that we had to do. And you looked at this as your job. This was your job. And so you figured it out. You made it work. I love that. It's amazing. There's so much adversity that you pushed through on this. Getting through that was a big deal. Obviously, and I think about things that people might say, well, I could never do that. We've already addressed the part where you're paying attention to your body. I think for you, the next piece is roaming these countries, not knowing what you might encounter along the way, especially in the face of all that we hear in the news and the media about what this world is really like. And so I really would love to dive into that a little bit. What was it like for you going into this, knowing that you're going to be in the unknown?
I think what served me, and probably it's in my psychological makeup as well. Like I said earlier, I've been a nomad my whole adult life. Mm. So my thrill in life was to actually, the best part of my life was always when I got a work assignment in another country, So I started with Scotland, then I was assigned to Greece for 1.5 years, then I was assigned to Germany, Switzerland, then I went to Asia, Singapore. And every time, the moment I know I'm going to pack my bag and go to somewhere I don't know the culture, I don't know the language, I don't know anyone there, it's my thrill, it's like I'm entering this unknown place to me. And I know that sooner or later, this is all going to be familiar to me. And, and I'm going to have learned so much in the process. And maybe it's continuing to change me. I'm changing constantly. This refining who I am, the sense of who I am and how the world is and how we interact. And this is when I say I've got a curiosity for the world, it's not just words, it's really something in me. So because I already had that in me, I have, in my 20 plus years of nomadism, I had learned that there is not so much to fear, and that because it's different, because you don't know, you don't have to fear, you just have to be curious and wanting to learn. And throughout my world runs, there was a lot of that. When I am starting crossing, let's say, for instance, South America, and I read on the site of the embassy that, I shouldn't cross the Biobío region because there are problems between the natives, the Mapuche and the local. And I read about it. Then, it encourages me to read about it, to understand. So first of all, I learned something. I would have never learned about the Mapuche otherwise. I had never even been to South America before. And then I learned that, I learned about their struggles. And when I come running across their lands, I'm aware. And I'm also very respectful for them and for the struggles they are facing. And because I come there running and not really naive, aware of their things, I'm able to engage into conversation with them. And there is an element of, I'm coming in peace, I'm just here running across and I hear you. And, I had amazing discussions with some of these people, and I was so honored that they would trust me to be the recipient of their stories as well. I've heard beautiful stories, across all 4 continents. And every time it's about understanding the source of your fear. Where does it come from? Is it just because we fear what we don't know? Because we fear what is different? We fear what provokes our way of thinking as well sometimes, and learn to be comfortable with it. And you replace a fear by knowledge, curiosity, and respect.
So, yeah, thank you for that. Maria, you had a secret weapon in this. Obviously, you had stuff that you had to bring with you, and you had a unique way of transporting your stuff that worked to your advantage in some of these maybe otherwise fearful situations.
Yeah, so when I started working on my logistics for the World Run, one of the first questions was, how am I going to carry all my stuff? I need some shorts and T-shirts. I need a pair of running shoes. I need a computer to update my website. I need my GPS devices, my satellite beacon. I need a few things. And when I put it all together, and also I need, of course, my camping gear, and I need to carry some water and some food on board. When I put it all together, it was somewhere between 12 and 15 kilos. And I thought, I can't possibly carry that in a backpack. I'm heading for an injury right there because, you put additional load on your shoulder, on your hip, on your knees, on your feet. I couldn't afford that. So I did a bit of research and I came with the idea of this stroller, literally a baby pram, but a super duper one, right? With some sort of it had 3 wheels. Yep. Some shock absorbers, and itself, it was about 11, 12 kilos. So thinking of it, I was heading for running around the world with equipment plus pram, 30 kilos pushing in front of me, which is something. But it turned out pretty well. But the thing is, I realized early on in my trainings that when I'm running in isolated places with this stroller, or even not just in isolated places, actually everywhere, people see a mother running with a child in a stroller.
Yeah.
No one would ever assume there is anything else than a baby in the stroller. No one. And so it gave rise to amusing moments, when I was crossing mostly the most isolated places in the US. I regularly had the encounter of the local sheriff pulling up in front of me saying, we have calls about a woman running with her baby on the motorway, on the interstate or something. And I would be like, hold on a second, let me open it and show what's in it. It was always very funny. And so, and one thing I realized also is when they see me like that, because they think I'm a mom with a baby, everybody was so kind to me. You know, they would ask me, do you have enough water for you and your child? Do you need food? Do you need some place to stay tonight? But also what it did is that it repulsed anybody who would be passing by with bad ideas in their mind, you know, because I'm not a prey. I'm not a target. A woman with a baby is too complicated. A woman alone could potentially be a target for a predator or God knows what. But the moment there is a pregnant baby, you know, they pass their way. It's too complicated. You know, what am I going to do with the pram, with the baby in there? They just pass their way. And I realized this stroller was actually a great protector, really.
Yes, it was.
So,
it was. Not planned, but what a great little secret tool that you had. So, you know, kind of along this though, one of the quotes that I dog-eared in your book, you said, discovering that the world, this was kind of one of your takeaways, is that discovering the world is safe for me to roam. And you kind of got into that a little bit too, but, you know, I remember specifically in a phone conversation that we had, you were talking to me about the people in the U.S. particularly, and you know, in the Northwesterns like Montana, and I'll just kind of share some of that with our listeners.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's easy even in the lights of today's events. You know, what we read nowadays in the news. You know, it's easy to be overwhelmed with it and think how dangerous the world is. And you know, for Christ's sake, you know, I'm crossing the U.S. I'm a foreigner. I'm very tanned. I've got dark skin. I'm alone. You know, I don't belong here. You know, it could be easy to think, gee, what's going to happen to me? But the thing is, and that's key, when I'm on my travel, I meet individuals. I meet somebody who drives their car, pass by me and asks me if I'm fine or whatever. And when you meet individuals, you meet their humanity as well, their individuality, their individual humanity. I'm not meeting groups. Groups can be dangerous because they rally around something else than who they are. But when I'm meeting people one by one along the route, I only get their kindness. I only get the best in them, which is something very universal and which I found on all continents I've crossed, which is you welcome the stranger. You take care of the stranger. And it's surprisingly in the most remote parts of the world, like if we talk about America, I'm talking about Montana and North Dakota, that I received the most superb welcomes and I felt safe. You know, sometime in Montana, I would arrive in a place, and you know, when I arrive in a place, there is always the saloon, the motel, and the gas station. Do you hear about it? So, you know, I would go straight to the saloon to get some food. And sometimes in this land that is not my land, that I'm not familiar with, I would arrive at the saloon and they say, "Yo, Lootie, we knew you were coming. You know, that guy from the saloon back in this, that, and the other called us and said you were heading our way. So your meal is paid for and your beer as well." And, you know, when you have that, it's emotional. It restored your faith in people, in humanity, in kindness. I felt protected. These people, unbeknownst to me, were looking out for me. And, you know, they wanted to make sure I reached my next destination okay, and that I was being looked after. How amazing is that?
It's totally amazing. And I want to grab on something you just said. You said it restores your faith. And so I want to ask you, like, you know, for you, what if there's a restoration of faith, it means there was a brokenness of faith. And what caused that brokenness of faith that had to lead to the restoration?
No, that restoration of faith is not for me because I've never lost a faith, but in the people I talk to. And so those people who welcome me, those people I make a connection with, you have no idea how many people had tears in their eyes when I was telling them that I was running around the world solo, unsupported, a woman. And when they cross my path and they welcome me and I tell them of my story, and it's them who are touched, and it's in them that something happens because they realize that, first of all, they are part of why I'm safe in the world. And it triggers something in them. And they realize that them, their neighbors, and the ones in other states as well, they are all part of why I'm safe and why the world is safe. And probably in them it restores something. My face was not broken. If I had a broken face, I don't think I could have gone around the world, but I knew I was safe.
Well, I mean, I love what you said about like groups versus individuals. And I guess where I was going with that, like when I talked to you on the phone recently, it did sound like you were somewhat surprised at how like the kindness that was shown to you along the way. And I guess like my thought is like, where does that surprise come from? Is it the media? Is it what you read on TV? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, to be perfectly clear, I was particularly not apprehensive, but I was wondering how my crossing of Montana and North Dakota would go. Again, because based on what I read in the news, if I go with that as the truth, these people are not particularly welcoming of the foreigners. I don't know their position on women, especially I was raising funds for a women charity, and I'm being presented these states as being Trumpists, maybe extremist in some ways. And I know they carry guns as well. So I thought, something could happen maybe. It was actually more people around me who were scared for me. My attitude was more, let's go and see, let's go and see. And there is a particular event I recount in the book where I'm in this small town in North Dakota and, I'm being welcomed there by the local people. And one of them takes great care of me, takes me around the country to explain to me a bit, what happened to their town, it used to be a very affluent and rich town. And now it's deserted and there is no employment. And said to me with, great sadness on his face, he said, and would you believe, they said to me that I'm, what word did he use? He didn't use fascist or something, but he used another word. And he said, it couldn't be more remote for the truth. That's not who I am. I'm just somebody lost in this, in the events. And, I am sad for what happened to my region and I don't feel I have a choice. And somehow when he puts it like that, it probably doesn't, I'm not judging who he votes for or what he supports, but I see the situation this man is in, and I see what he's facing. And again, I'm looking at one man. I'm not looking at a group.
Right.
And there is a connection where maybe in other circumstances I wouldn't have felt connected with this man. So, to me, that's what is important and why it's important to look at individuals and realize that there is this kindness and humanity that is our common denominator. If I have to say, what did you find out? I say, well, we all have that in us. Simple.
So when we talked last time, it seems to me like you've had a couple of years to like really reflect on the journey that you've taken. Obviously you've written a book. I mean, you've had a lot of time to really think through it. So, what is, as you've had time to really deepen the thinking about what this trip meant today versus like when you first finished, like what would you say are your biggest takeaways?
There are so many takeaways. First of all, it's not something, we all have our world run inside us. I mean, me, it was a world run. For you, it can be you dream to go to Mount Everest, or for somebody else to set up their company, or something that we wish we could do. And the moment you unlock that, you allow yourself to unlock it. You allow, it's like an onion that you peel and you take layers off. And what you take away each time is the fears. And there is always a little layer to remove. It's a never ending thing. But there is value in confronting, not directly your fear, but confronting your dream. Because by confronting your dream, looking at it in the face, that's when naturally the fear will come off. It's the wrong way around to say, oh, this, that, and are my fears, or the reason why I can't go for this dream. Just look at the dream. Don't look at the fears. And it will fall into place and you will find ways. But it's just how you look at it. But so many people around the world, again, the big takeaway, because it's what stays with me now. And what stays with me is I'm almost shocked by how many people have confided in me. I would meet them and explain to them I'm running around the world. Eyes would start to, steal in their eyes, and they would say, what my biggest dream is, or, I've always thought I would want to do that. People confide in me, a total stranger, their most intimate dreams or things that they wish they could do one day. And I'm the recipient of that. And my responsibility, if I have any, because you're responsible when someone confides you something, you become the holder of that, is to go through the end of this world run, complete it, and say, if the will is there, I give that back to you. You can do it too, So that's one thing I like to see as one of the main takeaway.
Yeah, so good. Marie, when I think one of the quotes that I highlighted, I don't know why it just really resonated with me. It was, I think, the last paragraph or even the last sentence before the epilogue. You had basically finished your world run. You're in Australia, and it's like kind of those moments where you're sort of absorbing like everything you had just accomplished. And, I'm sure you're kind of starting to think of like what's ahead, but just this realization that you finished. But the quote that I read was, "No one can see the fireworks exploding in my heart." And I love that. Can you just talk about what that feeling was for you?
It's a strange feeling. First of all, I finished that world run, opposite on the surface of the planet of where I should have finished. I should have finished where I started, which was in Europe. And I end up in Sydney, Australia, halfway around the world, because that was the last continent that I could cross. So I finished in a place that is not my hometown. My friends are not that. Just my parents have managed to make the trip and to be there. And there is only a small committee of persons from maybe the embassy or something who have gathered to give me a little bit of a welcome. And it's very much under the radar. World run is not something we talk about much because there is not much of it anyway. And so I had to fly. So there is this sense of arriving, and it's all a bit under the radar. And I take my plane back to Europe. I'm alone. And there is this like fireworks in me, like, gee, I've run around the world. I've gone through to the end. I didn't give up. I did this amazing thing. But of course, I'm alone with my little bag of belonging, walking through a crowded airport. And, you sort of catch yourself looking around at other people, and you wonder, has anyone got the same, or is that just me, because you don't know what other people's have been about either. I don't know, maybe some of them come from incredible adventure or submitting Everest or whatnot. But there is this sense of, nobody knows. More people have been to the moon. It's not very documented. Then, I was not talked about at all. And it's an overwhelming joy, and an overwhelming. You want to talk to everybody about it, but you stop yourself from doing it because they would think you're crazy. So it's coming with. I had joy overflowing from me, and this is the fireworks that I'm talking about.
Is there a feeling of wanting to share it with other people? Yeah.
You want to tell everyone, you're sitting in the metro or whatever, and you want to say, you know what I've just done? Because, in the aftermath of the world run, during the world run, you don't think you're doing something extraordinary, but you allow yourself a little bit afterward to think, okay, I'm an ordinary person, but I did something out of this world, extraordinary, not ordinary. And yes, you want to share it, but you can't, you would pass for a mad woman, or maybe, somebody who tells lies or something, because it's so out of this world. You just can't, it's too big to grasp to just talk to anyone about it.
Yeah. I mean, 2.5 years, this is such an epic adventure. In the epilogue, you quote a very famous poem called Ithaca. And just a couple lines that you shared in the book. As you set out for Ithaca, hope your road is a long one, full of adventure, full of discovery. And then you go on to say, for you personally, you haven't reached your Ithaca yet. And this poem is about kind of having a destination in mind, and it's sort of your goal to shoot for, but it's what happens along the way. So could you tell, when you say, I haven't reached my Ithaca yet, what does that mean?
It means that I realize now with the insight that what I'm chasing, is the reason why at 20 I left my country and set up on a nomadic life. This quest for the world, this curiosity. These 2.5 years of traveling the world in this fashion is just another way where for 2.5 years, I decided to do it differently than using my career as a way of moving from countries to countries. I decided to do it running. But it is by no means satisfying my quest. My quest is still there. I've been around the world, but somehow I followed one line. There are so many places I haven't been, so many things I don't know. And my curiosity is still there. And I think if this trip had been for me the end of that quest, that would be very sad. I mean, I'm only 48 years old, but when I realized that this was still in me, I realized that no, of course I haven't reached my Ithaca. These days I love sailing, for instance, discovering the world and from the seas, arriving in a new harbor every day, a bit like in the poem. This is something I haven't experienced yet, and I'm starting to do it with my sailing adventures. And there are so many ways to keep discovering the world. And this is still there. This fire is still very much burning in me. So no, I haven't reached it yet. I hope I never reach it.
The fire is still burning within me. I love that. I love that so much. And you went on another adventure, which is writing a book to document this whole thing. Can you tell us a little bit about the book, Lootie's World Run?
Yeah, I think it was, it's sort of essential to do something like that. First of all, to give an account of what you've been through, because it's not a common thing, and you do experience the world in a way not many people do experience. You experience this with your 5 senses. On foot, every step across the continent I've taken, I've seen what it looks like, I've heard, I've smelled, I've tasted, I've trod it with my feet. All of it is a unique experience of the world. So it's important to document it as well. It's not the fashion that people travel in anymore. They travel by bike, by car, by motorbike, by plane, not by foot. So, and also there is a sense that when you finally reach the finish line, it's very brutal. That's the moment you have to talk about your adventure in the past.
Yeah.
You are not running around the world. You have been on a world run. Yeah. And when the realization came that I was speaking about it in the past, it was a bit like the beginning of starting to grieve for something. And I didn't want to be mourning for it. I wanted to extract from it all the joys, all the positive, and to share it. Because for me, that's a way of giving it a legacy and share it. And in this way, it's never dead. My world run is not dead. Actually, the more I keep talking about it, I do a lot of conference, of keynote speaking engagements, and I keep giving sense to it when I talk to companies, or when I talk to a group of youngsters, or even in the world of sports sometimes, but not so much, unfortunately. But, you keep giving meaning and sharing something and transmitting something. So it's like a gift that keeps giving. And the book is part of it, because when you put it on paper, it's a big responsibility as well, because you've got to give justice to your journey. And it's very difficult to do because it's such a rich experience. How do you put it on paper? And I'm not a writer, so it was a lot of work, but it was some of the most satisfying things I've done as well.
Yeah. Well, you did a great job. It's a fun book. It's very easy to read. I got through it pretty quickly. I couldn't put it down. It was enjoyable. I feel like I really got to know your personality, and it was just a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. You are one of 6 people to have done this run, and you are 7, and you are six before you. So you're the 7th, and you're the fastest woman to have run around the world. How does that feel? Well, yeah, it's, to be fair, we are only 2 women to have run around the world. So I guess if there is a next woman who takes on the challenge, it won't be too difficult to beat my record. But I'm glad I've got it, because I did it with all my discipline, my mindset, and I didn't give up. And I thought at the beginning I'll run a marathon a day, and I was, but if I need to run just 30 kilometers a day to feel good, then that's what I would do. But no, I stuck to it, and I enjoyed it in the meantime. So I'm glad I got the world record, and it's also a world first, because I'm the first woman to have crossed 4 continents running. No woman has ever done that before me, so I will always be the first one. The other woman ran around the world, to give you the
backstory, did it by the Northern Hemisphere. So she crossed Europe, Asia, and North America.
Gotcha, yeah.
So I would have only 3 continents, but Asia was a massive one. Yeah. So anyway, I've got a world record in a world first. And yes, I like it. I enjoy it. I think it's quite incredible because I don't see myself as an today. I don't see myself as an athlete. I'm not an athlete. I like the adventure.
Nope, so you just 2.5 years of running a marathon every day and you don't consider yourself an athlete. I love it. I love that so much. So Lootie, if people want to find out more or maybe get a copy of the book, what's the best way for people to do that?
Well, in the US, you just go to either Amazon, Amazon.com and you order, or you can go directly to the site of my publisher. It's on Mascot Books, so you can Google that. Or, it's also in some bookstores. I'm not too sure because I'm based in Europe, so I haven't been able to keep an eye exactly of where things are. But the best way is probably to order it online.
Got it.
Lootie is well done.
It's an epic story. And Lootie, at some point, Hollywood is going to pick up on this story and they're going to want to make a movie about you. And so I'm curious, when they do, who's going to be the Hollywood actress that's going to play you in your movie?
It's strange, but I totally don't have a name to give you, but it has to be somebody unlikely. Just like the 26-year-old I was smoking a pack of cigarettes a day and looking for entertainment and parties. It has to be someone very unglamorous and absolutely not fitting at all the image of somebody who could run. Don't pick an athlete. Don't pick somebody who looks sporty and everything. He's a chubby one.
Okay. What's your movie going to be called?
Oh, without a doubt, The Greatest Adventure on Earth.
That's Greatest Adventure on Earth. And we're going to find a newcomer, an unlikely newcomer to play Lootie in this story. I kind of love how you finished with that. I guess I want to go back to, it was 26 when you kind of decided enough was enough. So let's go to your maybe 23, 24, 25-year-old self. What would that person say about the person that you've become?
It reminds me a question a journalist asked me before I set up on my world run. He asked me, when you come back from your world run, what do you think you would be saying on this show, to us? And I said, well, I don't even want to think about it and I don't want to know, because the only things that interest me is to be surprised. I want to be surprised. And my whole life, like I said, I was using my career to move from countries to countries. So my career was feeding my nomadism, but I never picture myself being an international CFO or, again, the accidental performance. I get where I am because I'm curious and I've got this incredible desire to understand and to discover the world. So would I be surprised as what I am today? Yes, probably. Yeah. I was never as yet. But this is the joy of it. Every step along the way, it surprises myself and keeps me wanting more because I want more of these surprises.
I love that. That's such a great answer. This has been so much fun. Lootie, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. And for those listening, I hope you've been inspired today as much as I have. I hope Lootie's story has encouraged you to listen to the voice inside that calls you to adventure, because we want to hear your story next. If you have a story to tell or just need a nudge to create one, please send me an email. We'd also appreciate it if you'd help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing or tagging Inspire Campfire in your social media. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thanks for listening. Lootie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you very much.